All right, welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right in today because we are looking at something really fascinating, the actual architecture of extraordinary achievement. You know, if you've ever looked at highly successful founders, the ones who completely change the game and assume they must have some kind of secret advantage, well, our source material today is going to systematically dismantle that myth for you. We're breaking down the research and the concepts that prove, without a doubt, that massive success isn't just a byproduct of what you're born with. No, it's a byproduct of how you choose to process the world around you.
Okay, so let's dive into this by starting with a really powerful premise from the text. It says, one idea can change everything. Now, I know that sounds super basic on the surface, right? But it actually functions as the ultimate thesis for our whole deep dive today. You really don't need 1,000 brilliant thoughts or some impossibly complex master plan to completely alter your trajectory. You literally just need one single concept that you are willing to fiercely commit to. It's all about leveraging the ordinary things in life into something totally extraordinary.
So let's look at the grand illusion that stops most people dead in their tracks before they even start. The prevailing myth out there treats wealth like it's this walled-off garden, exclusively reserved for the highly gifted, the deeply connected, or, just the incredibly lucky. But history repeatedly shatters that illusion. The reality is actually far more empowering for the rest of us. Extraordinary wealth is almost always built by completely ordinary individuals who simply decided to solve a localized problem. They didn't start out with massive venture capital. They just started with a frustrating constraint and chose to build a bridge right over it. I mean, just think about the mundane frustrations you face every single day. We're talking long lines at the store, painfully slow computer systems, customer service hotlines that just leave you more confused, or products that are just way too expensive. Our source makes this brilliant point that innovation actually hides in plain sight within these exact everyday annoyances. Just think about the origins of companies like Uber or Airbnb. They were literally born out of someone getting fed up with a super common friction point and deciding, okay, there just has to be a more efficient way to do this. The secret is that entrepreneurs treat these everyday complaints as a compass. Where the average person sees a dead-end inconvenience and just complains, the entrepreneur sees an inefficient market that's just waiting to be captured. Value creation at its core is essentially the alchemy of turning that localized friction into a scalable solution. The person who figures out how to effectively solve that annoyance instantly becomes highly valuable to society. And ultimately, creating that kind of structural value is the exact mechanism that generates wealth. Now, I really want to address the imposter syndrome that holds so many incredibly capable people back. Look at this question: what are you waiting for? Aspiring entrepreneurs often fail before day one simply because they compare someone else's finish line to their own starting line. We convince ourselves that we need perfect timing or massive funding or decades of industry experience before we can even make a move. In reality, waiting for perfect conditions is really just a highly sophisticated excuse to stay comfortable.
Because here is the open secret among successful founders. Confidence is a byproduct of action, not a prerequisite for it. Nobody starts out fully prepared. Every legendary founder you admire was once uncertain, inexperienced, and frankly terrified of the unknown. The defining difference between them and the people who never launch is that they simply moved forward despite feeling completely unready. They let the process of building actually dictate their confidence rather than waiting around for confidence to initiate the building.
And look, as you take that action, you are inevitably going to face friction. Strangers are going to criticize your ambition, your friends might doubt you, and your family members may literally question your sanity. If your self-belief relies entirely on their external approval, you'll quit at the very first sign of resistance. That is exactly why internal conviction isn't just nice to have, it's absolutely mandatory. It is the magnetic energy that retains your early teams and attracts vital capital when the rest of the world thinks your vision is totally unrealistic. But we do have to be completely real here. Belief alone isn't some magic shield. You will inevitably face the dark moments. Launches are going to disappoint, capital will dry up, and the market might initially reject your most brilliant ideas. Some days it's going to feel like absolutely nothing is working. And this specific, painful friction point is exactly the stage where the vast majority of people surrender. They misinterpret the resistance as permanent proof that they just aren't capable. So we have to reframe failure entirely. It's not a dead end at all. It's high-fidelity data gathering. A rejected pitch, that doesn't mean your overarching vision is flawed. It just means your translation of it needs work. A major financial constraint isn't a death sentence. It's actually an incubator that forces ruthless prioritization and creativity. A failed product is simply the market giving you direct, unfiltered feedback on what your customers actually need. Is it painful? Oh, for sure.
but it is unequivocally the greatest teacher in business.
To really ground this philosophical concept, our source points to a classic historical marker, Thomas Edison testing thousands of materials before finally creating the incandescent light bulb. But the deeper, often overlooked insight here isn't just that Edison tried really hard. It's that his lab at Menlo Park was intentionally designed as a factory for deliberate failure. He didn't view a burned-out filament as defeat. He just viewed it as crossing one more incorrect variable off his list. Legendary success doesn't come from avoiding obstacles, but from a stubborn refusal to quit and systematically harvesting data from every single miss. And this is absolutely crucial because today we are constantly fighting the toxic illusion of social media. That fake narrative of overnight success breeds a culture of early quitting. It conditions us to expect immediate gratification. But sustainable wealth, that is built in the shadows. It requires years of invisible effort and incremental progress. Enduring entrepreneurs understand that real leverage isn't hacked together in a weekend. It's constructed slowly, brick by brick, lesson by lesson, until one day the compounding results suddenly look like an overnight explosion to everyone on the outside.
So what does this all mean? Well, all of these dynamics combine to form a really reliable, simple 4-step success loop. First, notice the friction in everyday life. Second, build the solution before you feel perfectly ready. Third, harvest the data from your inevitable failures. And fourth, stay patient while outweighing the invisible progress. If you execute this loop consistently, you really don't need a genetic advantage to achieve extraordinary things. You just need the endurance to stay committed to the process longer than the competition. Because remember, your starting line does not dictate your finish line. That mundane frustration you complained about this morning, that might literally be the exact seed of tomorrow's massive breakthrough. Every huge empire that shapes our modern world started with just one person deciding to simply try. One ordinary decision can lead to an extraordinary life. So, I'll leave you with this. What is the ordinary decision you are going to make today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep building, and I will see you next time.